folks, it's 2 o'clock. Welcome. It is, I swear. 2:01 even. Yeah. I gave you a whole extra minute to get used to each other in this room. So welcome. I'm Lisa. I'm your instructor this semester. You are looking at our course web page, so I should be having this on Zoom as well. And let's see, where are my TAs? Okay, stand up and introduce yourselves too, please. Yes, and Erica is in the Zoom room, are you? Okay, so you can chat with Erica if you need to as well.
I'm not in the Zoom room. I'm Sam. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a fourth-year PhD student in the Higher Education and Student Affairs program, and excited to be here.
And Sam, I believe you were the one who came up with rumor.
I was.
As the official vocabulary. So yeah, we have roomers, ROOMERS, and Zoomers. So I like that very much. I stole it promptly, but I do give attribution where credit is due. Yes, so as you can tell, we're on a first name basis. I do have a PhD. I don't choose to be called doctor. If it makes you uncomfortable and you prefer to call me Dr. Lisa or Professor Lisa, that's fine. But no one really calls me Dr. Hoffman except my dad, and he does it ironically. So I'm just used to that. It's fine. This page is where all the stuff is going to be. So I don't use Icon very much. I have your course readings in it, and I will use the quizzes facility to do some things, but otherwise all of your course materials is going to be on this external site. So I sent out a link to where this is. It's also in an announcement inside Icon. If you don't have those things handy, just put my name in the Google and you will find me, because Lisa is spelled atypically. It's L-E-S-A. The story goes from my mother that when I was born, she thought that I looked like a Lisa, but not the regular kind. I don't know what the regular kind looks like. There's a lot of different Lisas in the world, but the fact that she was just a bit creative makes it easier to find me. So I have a website, lisahoffman.com, where I keep my stuff. The reason that I keep everything external is for future you. So if you in this class right now and 2 years from now you want to look something up and refresh something, it's going to be on my website. This stuff is going to live forever. Whereas the stuff in Icon dies or you lose access to it after you stop being a student, or in some cases after a certain point has passed. So everything is going to be on here. My office hours are going to be Mondays and Wednesdays from 3 to 4:30 on Zoom. I will be holding them from my basement at home. The way that it works is first come, first serve as a group. So you show up, I try to answer questions in the order that people appeared, and if that's all you needed from me, you can log out. If you want to hang out with us in case you have more questions and work in the background, that's fine too. And I promise I will stay there the whole time, okay? You can show up at 4:28 to ask me a 2-minute question, and that is perfectly fine. That's the flexibility of Zoom. Speaking of Zoom, we have Zoomers in front of me, so for you to know, the students cannot see you, only I can see you. You're sitting in front of me in front of the camera. Your screen share is what's on the projector in the classroom. And you probably haven't noticed this yet, but let me show you what's also happening in the background. I'm recording. So this is OBS software. I record every class. That way, if you want to hear it again, if you're not able to be here, you can get it as much as you want. The recordings are going to live on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel and I have a dedicated playlist to this class. So at the end of class, within a few hours usually, or by the next day at the latest, you will see a new entry on each of these boxes with a video link to that day's lecture. And I usually leave a few notes about what we covered, so like lecture 0, slides 1 to 12 is what we talked about that day. I put these on YouTube instead of Icon for a couple of reasons. One is that it generates automatic closed captioning, so that is sometimes helpful. I sometimes talk too fast. I sometimes mumble. So YouTube can help with that. The captions are not 100% accurate, but they're reasonably accurate. The other thing that it does automatically is if you click in the video description section, there is a link to a transcript. Those transcripts are searchable. So if you're like, when did she talk about this word? I don't remember this word. Search for the word and it will literally take you to the spot in the video where it heard me say it. Okay, so these are resources that can live on outside this class and hopefully make your experience a little bit better. Let's see, office hours for the TAs. I got to refresh myself here. So Erica's are hybrid. Somewhere on the north side on the 4th floor, good luck finding it. There is a room where the TAs live. 476, she will be there Mondays and Wednesdays from 9:30 to 11. And Sam will be on Zoom office hours only on Tuesdays and Thursdays right before this class, so 12:30 to 2. Let's see. So I have lecture 0 here. If you haven't downloaded that already, please do so. That's designed to help me not ramble too much in terms of what I wanted to highlight. So how about we do that? Before I dive in, though, any comments or questions so far? Can you all hear me? That's good, because this is top volume. I never took the class where I learned to project my voice, so I'm just yelling at this point. That's what I'm doing. All right, away we go. So first off, why are you here? There's 2 reasons for this. I have to. They're making me. I am very well aware that this class is a requirement for many programs in the College of Education and that you cannot get your degree without it. And if your job is to get through this alive, I'm right there with you. That is fine with me. I understand that a lot of folks are fearful or bored by quantitative methods, and I accept that reality. But I'm not going to live with that reality without trying to make it better. I hope to convince you otherwise. The other reason you might be here is because you actually want to learn how to do data analysis using quantitative methods, and that's what I'm hoping, because yeah, me too. I love this stuff. There's a reason I picked this as my job. It's not a random assignment. So quantitative methods, as opposed to qualitative methods, it's a way that we can answer questions about real life things or about research things, and we can collect data by which to do so that is quantitative in nature. So not focus groups or interviews or surveys, but more standardized assessments and instruments. The process of summarizing that data, though, trying to find the patterns that allow us to answer the questions, that is what quantitative methods is all about. So putting it together, quantitative methods is quantitative data plus the application of statistical models to answer questions about things you care about. So in terms of the levels of expertise, I want to be explicit about what you can reasonably expect as you're coming out of this class or a few more. So if you're coming to us as a master's student in our educational measurement and statistics program, or as a master's or PhD student in others, or as a PhD student in our program, wherever you're coming in here, then you may take some introductory courses in research methods, measurement, and statistics, maybe 2 or 3. That will meet your requirements, and a reasonable outcome of that is that you would have enough knowledge to be a competent consumer of quantitative research. You can read white papers and journal articles and understand at least what those reports are telling you at a basic level. You would have the competency to do some of your own analyses on quantitative data, but probably not all. If you get to this point and you're like, hey, this didn't suck nearly as much as I thought it was going to. Maybe I could take some more classes. Well, I hope you do come to that conclusion. So you can pick up more hours. You can actually pick up an alternative degree. So if you're in a PhD student from some other place, you can pick up a master's degree in EMS with 30 hours. And there's a lot of overlap in requirements. It may not be actually 30 extra hours to do so. Then you can start to be employed. So then you have a credential that allows you to sell yourself as someone who has expertise in quantitative methods and work in academic or industry settings. And if you're like, hey, I really like this stuff, then you could keep going. So I have a student right now who started out as a PhD in the higher HESA. What's it stand for?
Higher Education and Student Affairs.
Thank you. Higher Education and Student Affairs. She's decided she likes this stuff so much she's going to get another PhD. So she's going to get 2. Now that might be a lot. I'm not suggesting that path for everyone, but certainly if you see yourself going into academia, there's a lot of job ads I see that say things like, we want someone whose research fits in our area and can teach our undergraduate methods courses or some graduate methods courses. I call those jobs ands. And that was my first job, actually. I'm from psychology. I had a degree in cognitive and quantitative psychology, headed more to the quant side, and I was hired into a cognitive psychology program to teach their methods courses. So there's a lot out there if you're willing to give this a chance. But if you're not and you just need to get through this alive, that's fine with me too. So the name of this course is really, really unfortunate. Intermediate Statistical Methods. Doesn't really tell you what the content is about, right? Intermediate between something and something else, it's unclear. I don't like the name of this course. I didn't get to pick it. It's been this way since very long time ago. I would like to rename this course Introduction to General Linear Models, because that's what we're going to talk about. Statistics as a word is scary. It's also somewhat antiquated. And this is not a statistics department. We actually have one of those on campus. We have stats and we have biostats, informatics, and other places. That's where they teach statistics. We are teaching data analysis, applied statistics for purposes of research. And by the way, if you want to sound cooler, data science, that's what you're learning. You are all becoming data scientists. And those are the words that you would put into the search engines for jobs. Everybody wants a data scientist nowadays. It's a lot cooler than stats. Our goal is to make you competent consumers and users by learning the logic that underlies the use of statistical models. Logic. Logic and language is what you're here to learn. It's not about the math, I promise you. So I'm going to put it out there. I know that these classes get a bad rap, and I am here to counteract that from day one. You are not going to be deriving things. We're not going to be proving things. You will not hear me say the word lemma or QED or anything else like that. If you're interested in theoretical statistics, you are in the wrong place. There are many places on campus that do a wonderful job of teaching that if you'd like to go down that road. But I believe that it's okay to trust the people who figured this stuff out a long time ago and build on their work to do other things. Likewise, you don't need to memorize formulas. That is not necessary. The computers have the formulas built into them. I'm going to teach you how to use the computers to do the math for you. And to that end, we are not going to calculate things. You will not be computing anything on your calculator. Maybe one or two values for convenience, but that's it. Certainly not sums of squares or any of the stuff that you may have been tortured with in undergrad. There's 4 reasons why I don't do hand calculations. Number 1, we're bad at it. Humans are never going to win against a computer. And especially in Excel, doing things by dragging formulas or copying and pasting is a recipe for disaster. And there's some very well-known examples of research that turned out to be completely wrong because somebody copied and pasted into the wrong cell. This stuff happens, so we're not going to do that. Number 2 is that it doesn't work. Here's an article that came out recently. Eliminating ANOVA hand calculations predicts improved mastery. Yeah. Calculating things by hand increases error that has nothing to do with what you're here to learn. You drop a minus sign, that doesn't mean you don't understand the material, it just means you dropped a minus sign. So we're not going to do that. Number 3 is you can't do that anyway. If you are looking to learn how to analyze data for your thesis, your dissertation, or other research projects, you're not going to get out your calculator and start calculating stuff. That's not how it works. So I want you to learn the software skills that you would actually use in implementing quantitative methods in your work. And number 4 is that what you can do by hand if you wanted to stops at the end of this class. Every other class that I teach, the methods are impossible to do by hand because they require iterative search procedures to go through and find the answers that make the data most likely. You can't do it by hand even if you wanted to. So I don't see the point in teaching you how to do a bunch of hand calculations that are quickly going to become obsolete. Fair? Okay, so how are we feeling right now about being here so far? And I want to use a thumb scale, all right? So my thumb scale is continuous because I don't believe in measurement error. So thumbs up, obvious, but you can go sideways. I'm not so sure about that down to no. So those of you on Zoom, I don't believe they have a thumb sideways emoji, so you're going to have to make one up. If they don't have a thumbs down one, can you just find the poop emoji and make that work? Okay, so here's our survey. How's our thumbs right now? Mostly up so far. Excellent. Oh, a clapping sign. That's a definite compliment. Excellent. Okay, because anxiety just gets in the way. And this type of material you don't need to have at the top of your mind, at the tip of your fingers. I have a sister-in-law who is a nurse in an emergency room. In that profession, if somebody comes in bleeding and you don't remember what to do, that is very bad. But no one is ever going to be like, hey, if you don't know the formula for chi-square right now, this guy's going to die. Like, that is not going to happen to you. So giving you resources for the future, teaching you the logic and the language, that way you can continue to learn in the future, that's what my plan is, okay? No scary stuff, no anxiety, no tests. So it's not about the math. The hardest part about this class and any other data science class is working memory load, meaning managing all the things that are new, attached to each other with the right structure in your mind. That is why this is hard. Those of you who are good at languages, anybody speak more than 2, 3 languages? Few folks? Yeah, is it easy to learn new languages? It gets easier as you do more, right? No, it's not easy. Well, you're gonna learn a new language. That's what we're gonna do. Language has many forms. So it's not just words in English, it's notation. Symbols and equations are language, and I will teach you to use those, as well as how to speak computer language, the sets of instructions that you will give to the software that's going to do the math for you. That will be either called code or syntax. Syntax is usually what I refer to as back here. Logic is the idea of matching decision guidelines for different kinds of data and different kinds of questions, and then figuring out how to put that all together. So if I have this kind of variable and I want to know this about it, here's what I should do. But if I have that kind of variable and I want to know that about it, then I need to do this instead. It's a logic-based system where you understand the connections and the pieces. You don't need to memorize the details. You can go find them as needed. So like any other new thing that you're learning that's hard, working memory load is manageable. It's manageable through frequent exposure, mindful repetition, and engagement. Those are the ways that we make things not so big and not so big at the same time. That's why this class meets twice a week. After about an hour, you're going to feel like your heads are full. So that's the time where we start saying, okay, we'll see you next time. He's like, no, I won't. No, I won't. No, I love taking these classes as a student, but after about an hour, I lost my will to live, and I was just done. I remember taking a class on a Wednesday that started at like 4:30 in the afternoon and went to 7:30. There's a lot of classes that have that structure. I just remember, like, not only am I done, I am hungry, and I want you to stop talking so I can go home and eat. Speaking of which, if anybody missed lunch, you can eat in this room. I won't look at you, okay? I didn't see it, it's fine. Just don't spill on the computers and we'll be all good. So yes, we're meeting twice a week. This material is cumulative, so it does build on each other. So I'm going to have things built into the schedule to try and help us review as well as to try and keep up. So what are we going to do? I am going to help you acquire the language and the logic of modeling. I am coming from a perspective that all of you are capable of this, no matter what your background is. You wouldn't be here if you weren't. And I'm also coming from the perspective that you're grown-ups. I'm going to trust you. I'm not punitive. I want you to come to class as much as possible, but if you can't make it every time, that's okay. That's why I have things on YouTube. Then you will know exactly what you missed if that's the case. So I'm focused on accessibility. I'm focused on mastery. The assessment activities that you're going to do predominantly through homework, you get multiple tries to get something right, because that's the objective. I want you to learn from your mistakes. The materials that I present in terms of how to do stuff, I group things into units. And so we're going to have 6 units planned. The unit consists of 2 different kinds of materials. One is a set of lecture slides like this. These are much more conceptual. They're the what and the why. And if you're looking at this and thinking, yeah, your slides are really packed, Lisa, yeah, I know. Sorry, but I'm not sorry. My slides are packed with words on purpose because I want you listening and not writing things down very quickly. I want your notes to be only the pieces that sort of were added to, or ideas that you had, or things like points that I made when I was walking through this that were relevant to you. I want everything to be in front of you so you don't have to spend all of your time writing. So yeah, I deliberately pack my slides because future you is going to appreciate having a much more comprehensive record of what was covered in class. I also provide examples, and those example documents are going to be PDF files of compiled computer code and output that is heavily annotated that we will walk through in class. So rather than actively running software as a group, I build these things in a static format so that we can flip through it. That way you can never get lost, right? There's no like, oh, what did she run? Where did this go? That goes sideways very quickly. So I build these things offline. However, I will give you all the source files. So if you'd like to actively run it as you're sitting here rather than look at my handout, that's fine with me. The first unit, however, will not have one of these documents. Instead, I have made videos. So on the course website, I already put these up. They're posted later on for when we start actually using software. I have videos on how to get started using the University of Iowa Virtual Desktop, which is how you can access software for free, including SPSS, SAS, Stata, R, and various other things. And also videos on getting started with these things if you've never even opened them before. What do they look like? How do you work the windows? Where do you type into? Where's the numbers going to come back out? So I have videos for all of that stuff that will supplement the lecture where I'll show you some pieces of this type of code. And all of these things, again, are hosted on that external site. That way you can get to them no matter where you are, and people who aren't in the class can get to them no matter where you are. And anyone can benefit. So at the least, I hope that you get out of this class and get your degree. But if you learn quantitative methods, and more importantly, you learn how to talk to people about them, not just do them, but explain them and write about them, that is a really, really useful skill. If you look at my CV for my earlier years, you will see a very common pattern that I am second author on a whole bunch of stuff because I ran the analyses, I wrote up the results, and they put me on the paper. So my own research always progresses much more slowly, but you can sort of help with other people's and swoop in and get some authorship credit, possibly some money too, if you have these additional skills. So I think you will find that it is worth your time to build this into your compendium of skills. All right, so to recap, I am not going to present statistics through exclusive formula and unrelated ideas. I want to try to help you make connections across the things that we're going to talk about. I'm not going to give you exams of any kind, and they're not going to be high stakes. I'm not going to ask you to conduct analyses by hand, because that's not how we do it. I will try to link data, questions, and models. And if you have research that you're working on or that you're reading about and you want to ask me about, like, hey, is this thing you're talking about, I read this paper the other day and they said this too, is this related? I'd be happy to answer those kinds of questions. I love making those kinds of connections. So what you are going to do then are two different kinds of activities. Formative assessments, which are going to be hosted in ICON. These are review questions. There will be 6 of them planned. Each one is worth 2 points towards your final grade, and you get your 2 points for doing them. Not getting them right, doing them, making an honest effort to answer the questions. And these are going to be big picture questions, vocabulary questions, and these are things that you should recall off the top of your head or pretty close. And if you look at the question, you're like, yeah, I have no idea what she's talking about, that's your clue that you need to go back and review that concept some more. We are going to go over these as a class the next day after they're due. So everything is currently due on Monday nights, and I will be going over them, and also the TAs are going to be leading those discussions as well, right? So that means we're all going to be reading your answers to these questions. I think it's on the next slide, but I'll just say it now. I don't have the capacity to give you a lot of individual feedback. There's too many of you, and I make them do Monday nights for the next day, Tuesday, so there's not enough time. But if you don't think you've answered the question and you're not sure, ask in class. But it's helpful for us to see your answers, because if there's common points of misunderstanding or common points of confusion, that clues us in as to how we need to approach the discussion, what we need to spend more time on, what we need to spend less time on. The other thing you're going to do is homework. But this is not your regular homework. This is a very different way of doing homework that you have never seen before because I made it up. So, everything is take home, open note, and untimed. I do accept late work, but with a small penalty. Because this class is cumulative and I want to encourage folks to keep up, if you are late with one of your homeworks, you will miss 2 points. If you're late with a formative assessment, you'll miss 1 point out of the 2, and that's not per day, that's just period. So the homework assignments are worth somewhere between, I think, 12 and 18 points apiece. So it's a chunk off your grade if you're late, but it's nothing you can't come back from. So if you turned in absolutely everything late, you could probably still get a B+ in this class. Like, you'll be all right. The current set of due dates on the syllabus is the earliest anything will be due. If everything goes as I have planned, that's my plan. If we need to spend more time on a topic than I had initially thought, I will do that, but then I will push the due dates back. I want to make it so that you have at least 1 week between when we finish covering something and when you're responsible for turning in a homework about it. Formative assessments then. So yeah, I said most of this already, apologize. What your homework is going to be is doing data analysis. And more importantly, your analyses are going to be based on templates that I give you. No ChatGPT required. Okay, if you find yourself asking the internet for help, stop. Because I'm going to give you an explicit example of everything you need to do, and your job is to figure out how to adapt it to make it work for your homework. Change the name of the data set, change the name of the variable, change the value of something that you're asking a prediction about, like that kind of stuff. I will give you the structure. I don't want you to have to start from scratch because it's too hard and it's not necessary. So you should not need to invoke AI of any kind to do your work. The homework is going to be actual data analyses, but it's going to be on simulated data. So the way that this works is that everybody will have the same story, the same variables, the same questions, but I use your 8-digit ID number as a random seed to simulate a unique data set for each of you. So all of you will have different answers for your homework, which means that you can work together to get the solution, but ultimately you're going to have to run your own code on your own data to get your own answers. The homework questions come in 2 varieties. One is computational, and these are numeric answers. So the first question that I usually ask is essentially a number that provides a fingerprint for your model. If you have the right ingredients in your model, you will get this number correct. And you will enter it into a web page in a little text box. If you hit enter and it's a correct answer, it will turn green. If it is incorrect, the box around it will be highlighted in red and you will keep entering it until you get it right. You know immediately if you are on the right track. And I do not know or care how many tries it takes before you get it right. I want you to keep trying and you will know when you're there. So these get instant feedback and infinite attempts. But then the more important part is the interpretation. So then there will be results questions embedded in a paragraph completion format or multiple choice questions that ask you, what did that number mean that you just got right in question 4? What does it tell you? And because those are multiple choice, I can't give you immediate feedback. But after the assignment is done, after the due date is passed, when you open it back up, you will see that any correct answers from those multiple choice questions have turned green. If they're not correct, your answer will be in red, followed by what the correct answer should have been in green. So you can work backwards to figure out where you may have gone wrong. And I would say that if everybody gets it done on time, I can go over these in class, but that has never happened, like so rarely that I can't plan on it. So if you look at your homework and you're like, yeah, I have no idea where this is wrong, come talk to me or ask the TAs. We're happy to try and explain that thing to you. And sometimes it might be the case that I screw up because these coding systems to tell the program what the right answer is are very intricate and I am imperfect. So it's possible that I made an error and I'll fix it if I did. Okay? How are we feeling about homework? It's not so scary. So I had it all ready to go, but then 4 people added the class this morning. And I was like, okay. So I'm not going to release it until Thursday to test out. That way if we get any more late adds or drops. But if you're curious right now, I made a video demonstrating what is going to be homework 0, the first thing you're going to be asked to do. Homework 0 will take you about 3 minutes because it's about the syllabus. The objective is for you to get used to the system in a low-stakes way, make sure that everyone can access it before I turn it live for doing actual things. So I recorded a video the other day using the system if you want to watch it, and then, or you can wait until it's online. I'll let you know when it's ready, and then you can work your way through it with the video. All right. So besides doing work out of class, my job is to answer your questions. And there's multiple ways that you can ask them. I would prefer that you ask questions in class so that everyone can hear the answer. That being said, if you're shy, Zoom is your friend. Even if you're sitting in front of me as a roomer, you can log into Zoom and you can send messages in the chat window that only I see or that everyone on Zoom can see, or you can send your messages to the TAs and they'll read them out loud. If you want to email us questions, that's fine too. I would say start with me as your point of contact for email, but if you've worked with the TAs in office hours and you want to follow up with them, that would be fine to send them emails, right? That'd be okay. Or if you just like them better than me, you want to talk to them instead, that's fine. My feelings aren't going to be hurt as long as you get the help you need. That's the most important thing. So we have office hours in a format that should allow you to pop in, ask questions. The reason that I love Zoom so much for this is because the screen share, right? Everyone's like, can I share my screen? Like, here's my code, tell me why it's broken. Like, that's so much easier in a virtual environment, especially for people who have old eyes like me. Do not work very well. Yeah, so you'll see me squint at you sometimes. That's because I need glasses for distance vision. But if I wear them, then I can't see my screen. So I either do this the whole time or I just have you all a little blurry. So if I don't say hi to you in the hallway, don't take it personally. I didn't see your face. That's just the reality. All right, so your job, asking questions, is the number one thing. Reviewing frequently, and please don't wait to the last minute to start your homework. It will not go well. I do think, though, that there is diminished returns in continuing to bang your head against the wall if things are not working. So I would like to recommend what I call the 15-minute rule. If you're stuck on one thing for more than 15 minutes and it's not working, stop. Take a screenshot of your code that you're trying to use, the error messages that you're getting, and what you thought the answer should be, and send those screenshots over email to one of us. That's a lot easier than having you send your entire programming and having to go run it. Because we can usually look at it real quick and be like, yeah, you're missing a parenthesis. That's why you've been fighting with this for the last hour. It's going to be that kind of trivial shit that isn't about your ability. It's just like you're not used to this coding environment. So those are the kinds of things we can help with very readily and are happy to do so. The textbook is in the library online. I like this book quite a bit because it is very thoughtful. There's a lot of sort of extra discussions of things that you don't tend to find in these kinds of books. That being said, I didn't write it and I'm not teaching from it. I have my own way of talking about things and doing things, so the textbook isn't necessarily going to follow exactly what I say. However, another reason I like it is because it has SPSS code in addition to SAS code as well as Stata code. So folks who are used to those packages may like referring to their examples and things like that. The rest of the readings I would put in the optional category. There's things that I think you should be aware of or take with you for future reference, but they're not mission critical. So in terms of like where your priorities should be, show up or catch up on what you missed if you're not able to come, get your homework done, ask questions to make sure that you understand what you're doing, and then go to the readings if you have time for that. And the way that I list the readings, by the way, is like as a group. So for instance, like for Unit 2 or Unit 3 here we're starting, like these are all the readings that go with that unit. I don't expect you to have them done that day. They're just like in a group because they all refer to the same set of topics. The readings, by the way, are inside Icon under Files in a zip folder, all of them. So one download and you've got everything that you need. All of the references for them are on the syllabus and also at the bottom here, so you can get to the original sources if you want to do it that way. Okay, still doing okay? Thumb check. Excellent, Zoomers. No poop emojis yet. I think I'm on the right track. When my son was little, he called them moji poops. So I have to like stop and not say it that way. Anyone else have kids? A couple of folks? All right, you're going to hear some stories. I have a 9-year-old son. He's very into video games and he wants to be a YouTuber when he grows up. I can't believe that that is a job. But he spends all of his free time either playing Nintendo games or Fortnite or watching grown-ups play them on YouTube as research. Like I will see him like in the living room with his headphones and his iPad watching a YouTube video while the screen is paused. Like he's going to figure out how to beat the next level or whatever. or get more HP, whatever the hell that is. Yeah, I cuss a lot. I'm sorry. Or I'll try to be more professional if anyone's offended, but that's just kind of how I roll. So, all right, strongly recommended but not required attendance. You can choose no matter which section you are in. Oh, Zoomers are saying counselor, education, and studying video games. Excellent. If you need a research subject, he's a bit of an expert. Just ask him. I have 2 sections officially for this course. I don't normally do it that way. I teach hybrid for everything. I started teaching hybrid in January of 2020 because I was teaching a version of this course, which is required, and I had a couple different people say, I work full-time in a school district that's 90 minutes from here. I can't leave work twice a week and have that work. Can I have a Zoom link? I'm like, okay, I don't see why not. And then, the world shut down and we were all on Zoom and I had a head start. And after we started coming back again, I didn't want sick people in my classroom. So I kept the Zoom link open and I continue to do that. So that's the thing that I care about. If you are in the Zoom section, you are welcome to come in person if you would prefer. If you're in the in-person, the roomers, as we call them, thank you, you're welcome to show up on Zoom. I don't need to manage that. You pick however it works best for you, okay? The only constraint is that there are 34 people and there's only 30 chairs in this room. So if everybody decided to show up in person, then we might have to get some extra chairs. But otherwise, so what? The one thing I do care about, if you are sick, please don't come. Please don't cough and sneeze over everybody and make us all sick. I don't care if it's COVID or monkeypox or the flu or whatever, just please don't make me sick. I started out this last school year with COVID. And so I was teaching on Zoom the first week, took Paxlovid, and then it came back 3 days later. And so I was still on Zoom. And I don't want to make anyone else sick. So if I am sick, I'm not going to be here. If I am sick, I will let you know that we're moving to Zoom if I have a voice, or if I'm too sick to teach, then I'll just cancel class. So that's the one thing that I take very seriously is our commitment to each other to try and keep ourselves healthy. Also, if there's some weather issues that complicate attendance, I will probably move to Zoom. There's a lot less of that in the fall, but just as an example, last spring in January, you may remember, there was a 2-week period where my son went to school 5 times because we just got dumped on with this epic snowstorm over this 2-week period. It was terrible. And then once we got into April, we had to end class early because of tornado warnings, right? So you never know what's going to happen. If public schools are closed because of weather, we're moving to Zoom. I'm just going to tell you that right now. I don't, if it's not safe enough for the kids to be out, it's not safe enough for us kids to be out either. So that's what I do care about. I will communicate with you via regular email. I don't send things through Icon or Maui very much. That's usually because across the 2 sections and any auditors, I have a list of all the people and it's easier that way. So just watch for your email. If anything changes, I'll let you know by 9 a.m. at the absolute latest. Okay, so let's talk about software, shall we? They're like, That's part of my job. To actually do this stuff, you have to do it. And that means you need to learn how to tell the computer how to do it for you. So I am going to be featuring 2 different programs. One is called Stata and one is called R. Stata stands for Software for Statistics and Data Science. As an FYI, this is the official way to spell Stata with a capital S. I insist on writing it this way out of pure spite. Because Stata's code insists that you write everything in lowercase. And that just really irritates me because I have a coding convention where I do program codes in capital letters and things you would change in lowercase to help offset it, and I can't do that in Stata. So I'm revolting by spelling their name wrong. R, how many of you have heard of R software? Everybody. Yeah, R is like the way of the world. R is the free version of what used to be called S, and that was a long, long time ago. SAS is another package that I will give you materials for, but I'm not going to emphasize. So this is what I am best at. SAS is not used very much anymore, but I do know that the Iowa testing programs uses it pretty extensively, and so I tend to provide examples so those students will be able to have those materials. Why not SPSS? I know, I'm going to bum you out, right? There's probably some SPSS lovers. I grew up with it too. The reality is that it doesn't have as much of the higher end material, and so no one else teaches from it in the College of Education, at least within the EMS program. There may be other places that do, but we don't. So it's like if I teach you SPSS now, you're not going to be able to take it with you and do other things with it. That being said, if you like SPSS because of the drop-down windows, learn Stata. They have them too. And they do the same thing where you can navigate through a series of commands for what you want, click OK, and then it echoes back the computer code that you just generated through those windows. So it's a nice way to build yourself into becoming a coder. However, SPSS is featured in the textbook. So if you really want to learn how to use it, I can help you. I know how to use it just fine. And they have examples in the textbook. So I started with SPSS in undergrad and grad school. I transitioned to SAS as a postdoc. I had to learn Stata on the fly to teach workshops using it for the ICPSR, the University of Michigan's group. I don't like R. I know everyone thinks it's like the cat's pajamas or best thing since sliced bread or any other expression that old people say like me. I hate R. I'm going to tell you that right now. You're going to hear me complain about it quite a bit. Everyone's like, but it's free. It's free. You know what I say? You get what you pay for. That's my problem with R. Question, which software do I recommend for beginners? Here are things to consider. Thank you for that segue. That was lovely. So you will need to use either Stata or R to be most readily successful in this class. R is something you can install on your own machine. Stata is available for free through the University of Iowa's virtual desktop. That's the thing that I have videos teaching you how to use. Here are the things to think about. If you're interested in making sure that you can do this stuff without a university license, R would be the way to go because you will always have access to R. You can install it on any machine, Windows, Mac, Linux, what have you. SAS, by the way, has a free web-based thing. If you're an academic, you can get to. So here's a link to that. Stata costs money if you want to have it. So I've had folks who didn't want to deal with the virtual desktop buy a Stata license for like 6 months. For a student license is $50. So if you're like, yeah, I hate the virtual desktop, I don't want to deal with it, you can throw money at the problem. Stata is popular in certain kinds of fields because it has a lot of extra features for very large data sets, like big secondary data analyses, especially for things that have survey weights. Stata is designed for that. And consequently, it tends to show up more in certain disciplines. So HESA certainly is a Stata. The rest of the EPLS folks too, or not so much? For the most part. Sociology, absolutely. Political science, I've seen before. Public health, I've seen before as well. So there's certain fields, if you're coming from those fields, your advisors probably want you to learn Stata. Stata is easier. I gotta be honest with you. Stata is much more user-friendly. It is built for data analysis. Social work, I don't know if there is a preference from that one, but you might want to talk to your advisors. So this would be, if you ask them, which do you think I should spend time learning, they'll give you an answer if they have a preference. R is what I would recommend, especially if you want to take other classes in EMS. So Design of Experiments uses R with Dr. Ariel Aloe. Other classes use R. My husband is Jonathan Templin, another faculty in our program. All of his classes use R exclusively. I'm the only one who teaches in anything else. So I am. It's because I hate R. So if you're interested in taking those classes, learning R now will probably help you. But if you're looking for the easiest way out of here, it's Stata, hands down. You just have to get to the virtual desktop to use it, not your own machine. The reason that I dislike R is because the way that it works is base R, like the stuff that comes out of the box with it, has certain functions. But the way that people build on it is to write their own routines and attach it into R. They're called packages. So you download somebody's package and then you can do extra things that that package allows. Now that's wonderful, but you gotta be able to trust the people who made the packages. And right now there's not really quality control. So you might have someone who's an excellent programmer, understands numeric precision issues in terms of computing, or you might have someone who doesn't and their package fails. I've seen a package return a probability of 1.2 out of R. Spoiler alert, probability does not go up to 1.2 as a metric. It stops at 1. So stuff like that I have seen. The documentation is often pretty terrible, very limited, because the people who make the packages are not being paid. So why would they spend their valuable time making their packages extra user-friendly to get no money out of it? So R is great, but it does have limitations. The R that I will teach you is using base R as much as possible and minimizing the use of external packages that may or may not work on people's individual machines. That I have found to be the most successful route. Who took 4143 from this university? Anybody? Okay. Yes, one person. So question, when we complete assignments, can we choose the program we prefer? Yes. One of the jobs of the TAs is to make sure they can answer all homework questions in either package, so they get to do it twice, right? Yeah, oh, I got to make it twice, so they get to do it twice. That's fair. So yeah, you can totally pick. You don't have to pledge allegiance to one or the other. It's up to you. What I was going to say is that if you took 4143 here, you used R through a website. So you do know R if you've done that. I teach it to you in the way that you will actually need to do it in your own work. There won't always be some website where everything is loaded and automated for you. That's a really nice way to get started, but it's not realistic to continue. So the code that I will do is something that you can do like on your own machine. She welcomes Stata. Me too. All right, so here is a little bit about the differences in syntax across programs, just so that you've seen it to begin with. I will give you lots and lots of examples throughout the semester though. So syntax, again, is my name for the computer code that you need to enter to make the program go. Syntax in Stata and R is case sensitive. So that means if you have a variable name that has a capital S to start it, that is not the same as lowercase s. And it will be like, I do not recognize your variable. And you will be like, oh my God, I typed it. What is the problem? Capitalization. And even I mess this up sometimes. So my husband is very, very good at R and like a bunch of other things. He's a computer programmer. He writes software for a living. He has patents. He's like of that kind. One Saturday morning, I was working on a class example, new to R, this is probably 2 years ago, and I could not get it to import my data. Like, what the hell is the problem? I'm banging my head against this. I'm up before him. He gets up. He's sort of like stumbling by with his coffee. And I'm like, can you help me? He looks at it. Those are capital letters. Goes back with his coffee. Like, he was right. Those are capital letters, and I didn't encode that mattered. So like that's like you forget a semicolon, you forget a parenthesis. Like this is the kind of easy shit you can screw up without being familiar with this. So case sensitive is a big difference. SAS is not case sensitive. That's one of the things I like about it. So I write code differently in SAS as a result of that. SAS syntax has two things that you use for everything. Something called a data step, which is where you do things to data sets, merge them together, make new variables, drop cases, that kind of stuff. Or proc, which stands for procedure, which is various kinds of functions that are programmed to do specific analyses. Every line ends in a semicolon. So in SAS, you can forget your semicolon, it won't go. That's an easy thing to forget. Stata syntax is also very regularized, but it uses far fewer words. You will do very little typing in Stata. And that sounds great until you look at someone's code and you're like, what is this doing? Like you just have to know the first word you type means this, the second word you type means this, the third thing means this, and you need a comma and then you do this. Like you just have to get used to seeing it that way. So it's less transparent in what's happening because it's a lot easier to type. Lined end is where the command terminates. So when it gets to the end of the line, it thinks it's done. If you need to wrap to go to the next line for a really long thing, you need 3 slashes in certain versions of Stata as a line continuer. I believe this has been changed in more recent versions. Can I get any confirmation, Stata users? I do it sort of superstitiously at this point, and also because I want my code to be backwards compatible with earlier versions. So you'll see this 3- thing because it wants to wrap around the line. Our syntax is going to look like nuts, unless you are a computer programmer, in which case it will look very familiar. It's entirely functions, all of it. And a lot of these functions are not transparent because the examples don't actually say what the name of the argument to the function is. I try to put those in my code to make it obvious what you're saying. Data equals this, as opposed to just this being the first thing, and you just have to know that it means which data set you're using. So I try to make it more transparent, but it's not always. Inside R itself, if you open the package, it looks like a DOS window. Like it looks like something from 1985, because that's what R is. RStudio is a wrapper interface that works around R. So then it's a Windows-driven thing where you have multiple windows, you can see your typing and your output and your data and all the stuff. So I would highly recommend downloading R and then downloading RStudio to use with it. That's what I will show you. So here is a quick demonstration of what program syntax would look like in each of these packages, just to get you used to seeing it. So let's say you were asked how your dinner was, and you would like to say, it was fine, it's not too spicy. I don't like spicy food. I'm like a big wuss when it comes to those kinds of things, so not spicy is like the highest compliment I can give you. Down below here, you're going to see what this would look like in each program. A lot of the lines are going to be green. Green means comments. When you're writing code, comments are notes to yourself about what you're doing and why that the computer just passes over. These are really, really important, though, especially when you're first getting started, to document for your future self. So let's say that I wanted to put this idea into SAS. It would be like proc answer, because that's what I'm doing. I'm answering the question about dinner. My response is that it's fine, and I'd like to add an option for spicy equals no. And note that each of these lines ends in a semicolon, and then run makes it go. So if you're used to the idea of execute in SPSS, run is the analog. I think of this from the perspective of a parent, like, I would like this procedure, please. Like the please is what makes it go, the run. Otherwise, it's like, Mommy, I want this. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Mommy, I want this, please. Oh, now I heard you. Okay, now I'll get it for you. So run makes it go. Stata would look like this. Answer would be the command, response, fine, comma, no spicy. So much more compact, just the bare bones in terms of a structure. No semicolons or anything else. And then the comment way in Stata is 2 bars. In SAS, it's an asterisk. And this is what it would look like in R. You would save the result as a thing, use a function, and they're usually named something clever like this. Tell it what data set, formula, squiggle, response equals fine, comma, spicy equals false. And then to actually see what you wanted, you have to ask for it separately. It does the computations and hides them from you by default. You got to ask for output. So these syntax conventions look very different, but they are all capable of doing a lot of the same things, particularly for the models emphasized in this course. All right, if you're like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? Copy and paste is how you're going to do this. You don't need to memorize these things. I don't. Whenever I start a new project, I think, when did I do something similar to this before? And I go get that file, and I start with it, and then I start editing. That's what you're going to do. So homework is going to be a very straightforward process. I will say, homework 1 uses example 1. Okay, let me go get the file from example 1, figure out how to modify it, and copy, paste, and find and replace are going to be your friends. You can systematically fix all the pieces of the code that way, and that's what I would recommend. And don't hesitate to ask for help. When this is new, it gets tricky, and you can do things that look reasonable, like capital letters, and have it not work for no apparent reason. Let us help you, okay? That's why we're here. They pay me. Did you know that? They pay me to help you. So just remember that if you're like, I feel like I'm bothering her too much. They pay me. Like that, this is my job. So don't feel bad. Your tuition dollars are hard at work. All right, 2:55. How are we hanging in there on the first Tuesday of classes? Still hanging in there? All right, let's talk prerequisites. I got several emails from folks about this. Officially, the graduate school lists the prerequisite of I call it PISQUIF. That's how I pronounce this. Other people call it P&Q, but it's a pronounceable acronym. PISQUIF 4143. Now that is our introductory statistics class. That's like your undergraduate, sort of the very beginning kind of class. That's what's listed officially. Here's something that they probably don't want you to know, but I'll tell you. At the graduate level, there is no enforcing of prerequisites. The computer can't do it. That only happens at the undergrad level. I have no idea who's taken this course, nor do I care. Here's the list of things that I'd like you to be familiar with. I didn't say like perfect at, familiar with. Descriptive statistics. What's a mean? What does a frequency table tell you? Maybe for extra credit, variance. The spread of numbers around a mean. In other words, like, oh, you're picturing a picture like this in your head maybe, right? How wide that thing around the mean is, that's variance, that idea. Bivariate association. Bivariate means two variables at once. Association means how they're related to each other. So for continuous numeric variables, we might estimate something called a Pearson correlation to examine how related they are to each other. For categorical variables that are kinds, we might do something like a chi-square analysis to see how they're related to each other. I want you to have seen this stuff before. Statistical vocabulary and concepts. So null hypothesis testing. Having seen what's a p-value, what's the idea of a sampling distribution? That one might be a little more unfamiliar. The idea that we are asking a question, is this relationship different than what I expected it to be? That concept. And ideally the use of some kind of software to have done this stuff before, whether it's SPSS or something like that, I don't care. If you're like, yeah, I don't have any of this, do I need to drop? Not necessarily. We're gonna go through all of this stuff quickly in the first 2 units. If it's not sitting well after that, maybe you decide not to stay for this semester and pick it up later, but I think it'll be okay. So this class, as I said before, I'd like to rename it Intro to General Linear Models. What is that? GLM for short. I guarantee that if you've taken a course that lists any of these things, you're going to be familiar with a lot of these concepts. But the way that I'm going to give them to you is going to be different, because I'm going to give them to you in a way that allows you to build on them, not as separate, unrelated routines, but as a comprehensive, cumulative idea. So folks who've taken, let's say, a stats course before, who's taken a stats course in undergrad? Maybe master's program? Most folks? Okay, have you heard the phrase t-test? That's one that gets covered, right? What's a t-test tell you about? Ooh, quiz time. You're not afraid, you said. You're not shy, you told me earlier.
Okay.
I'm going to cold call on you. Prove it.
Okay, t-test is talking about like the z-scores of t-scores, but they're dealing with samples as opposed to the whole population.
Okay, so a t-distribution is different than that. What if we wanted to compare 2 groups with the t-test? Right, I got 2 means, I want to know if they're different from each other. T-test allows you to compare them officially and say whether they're different. So then you learn t-test is one thing, correlation is one thing, chi-square is one thing. You might learn ANOVA as a thing, analysis of variance. Well, what if I told you these are all special cases of the GLM? Like they all fit under one thing. And it's just a question of what you call it as you turn the knob ever so slightly for a different permutation. So let me give you some vocabulary, because if you've seen this stuff before, I want you to know that I'm going to be talking about it again, just from a different lens. So general linear models, that's what the rest of this course is going to focus on, is a one-stop shop for predicting one numeric outcome per person or per sampling unit with one or more predictors. We're predicting numeric outcomes. If your predictors are quantitative, if they are numeric variables, then allowing predictors that are numeric to predict an outcome that is numeric is called either simple regression if there's only one predictor, or multiple regression if there's more than one. Sometimes the word linear gets thrown in here. We'll talk about what that means and what it doesn't mean, because we are going to cover both linear associations and nonlinear. I know, right? Fancy. But what if I have a predictor and it's a kind? What if I want to know, if I put you in the treatment group instead of control, how much better should you do? That happens a lot. Well, if I have one 2-group predictor We call that an independent samples t-test. If I have 3 groups in my one predictor, we call that one-way analysis of variance. If I have 2 multiple group predictors at the same time, that's two-way analysis of variance. Can you guess what it's called if there's 3? Don't think too hard. Three-way, yeah, right. So if you approach it from, I need to learn all these different things, that's a lot harder than like just understanding why they differ. Well, this is for quantitative variables and this is for non-quantitative variables. Like that's easier in my head. So this is what I'm talking about with the logic and the decision making. Because understanding quantitative versus categorical is the most important thing. Like let's say that I have a variable about favorite kind of pet. And 1 means dog, and 2 means cat, and 3 means rabbit. Is that a number? Is that variable numeric? Can I say that rabbit is more than cat or dog? Some people might think so, but other people are like, actually that's incorrect. I believe dog is more than rabbit or cat, and I would say that cat beats all of them. Now, but it's treated as a number in the program though. It's just that the numbers are category labels. Do you know what would happen in R, Stata, SAS, or SPSS if you had, I want a Pearson correlation between pet and something else? It'll be like, sure, here you go. Does it mean anything? Absolutely not. And that's the scary part, is that, yeah, the computer will do exactly what you tell it to, even if you tell it to do nonsense. So the underlying logic is really important. The math, not quite so much. The logic and the interpretation is really the most important part. And I want you to learn it from this perspective, that way I can add more stuff to this structure. So as an example, what if you wanted to predict kinds rather than numbers? Could you do that? Could I predict who is more likely to say dog wins than cat wins? I could, not in this class though. That's the next class. Generalized linear models, PSQUIF 6270, teaches you how to predict kinds instead of numbers. But it's the same like system. It's just adding extra stuff because you have to adjust the model so that it understands that these are kinds and not numbers. So if you had this content before, it will sound both familiar and unfamiliar at the same time. But I'm doing it on purpose so that you can build your knowledge later in future coursework or in just reading on your own and understanding more about quantitative methods. All right, let's see. I think that is probably actually a good transition point, and I'm not sure that I have the strength to go the entire time the first day. How about you? Would you be really, really sad if I gave you 11 minutes of your life back? You would? Okay, you should stay. We'll chat. Anyone who is not sad, how about we call it a day? Yeah. All right, we'll pick this up next time, and I hope to see folks on Thursday. Until then, let me know if you need anything, okay? Thanks for being here. Bye, Zoomers. We'll see you next time.
So people who do both are Zoomers?